Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll be talking about a new approach for structured adaptive mesh refinement. This new approach gives us some scalable algorithms, some improvements over the traditional approach. And this work was done in collaboration with our colleagues from Department of Astronomy. So this is the outline of the talk. I'll first give a brief introduction to adaptive mesh refinement, which is abbreviated as AMR. Then I'll quickly talk about the existing parallel AMR frameworks and the approach that they use. Then I'll describe our new scalable approach and compare it with the traditional approach. And finally, I'll give some experimental results. So let me begin with the introduction to AMR. The numerical solutions to partial differential equations is obtained by introducing a grid and then estimating the values of unknowns at the grid or the mesh points. The spacing between the mesh points tells us will determine the local error and also the accuracy of the solution. So when we use uniform meshes, we need as much resolution as is required to have an acceptable error in the difficult regions of the mesh. A difficult region is basically just a discontinuity or a steep gradient. So in this case, the circumference of this circle has some discontinuity. So it becomes computationally very expensive. That is where the adaptive mesh refinement comes to picture. What it does is it starts with a coarse base grid, and as the simulation progresses, it identifies the difficult regions in the mesh by some criteria, some error estimation criteria, and then superimposes finer subgrids only in those difficult regions. So if we compare it with the uniform mesh, we have significantly lesser blocks or the unknowns in the adaptively refined mesh, and this approach therefore makes it feasible to solve problems that were intractable on the uniform grid. So our applications of AMR, they span a diverse set of fields including computational fluid dynamics, astrophysics, climate modeling, turbulence, combustion, and many more. This is a simulation given to me by one of the collaborators in this work. It basically just simulates the impact of a supernova explosion on a companion star. So it shows that so how the difficult region, so the so-called difficult region, it moves in the mesh as the simulation progresses. So the different regions have to be adaptively refined and coarsened as the simulation is progressing. This particular animation was generated using the Flash AMR framework. This just shows the this is just a rendering of the gas density in the space. So I will now talk about the traditional approach used in many typical AMR frameworks. So there are many existing frameworks. Some of them are Paramesh, Samurai, Flash, P4S, Enzo, and there are many more. Our current work just focuses on octree based simulations. So a little bit more background on AMR. The refinement structure of the mesh can be represented using an octree in case of in 2D and an octree in case of 3D. So in this tree, each node in the tree corresponds to a block in the mesh. A block is just a rectangular or a cuboidal region in the mesh. When a block needs a refinement, it creates 4 children, and similarly this can be recursively done whenever we need refinement or coarsening. An important condition in AMR is that the refinement levels of the neighboring blocks differs only by ±1. That is, they should not, the ratio of the neighboring the ratio of the size of the neighboring blocks should not be more than 2. D here is the depth of the tree. And the restriction is there so that when the boundaries are exchanged, the interpolation and extrapolation of the ghost layer does not introduce a lot of errors. So in the typical implementations, the way it is done is a set of blocks is assigned to each process. For example, in this case, these 3 blocks are assigned to process 1, these 3 blocks are assigned to process 2, 3, these 3 to process 3, and so on. So this distribution is typically done using a space filling curve, an example of which is shown here. The thing to notice here is that each process is responsible for a set of blocks, and these blocks could be at different refinement levels. So a process has to take care of several blocks which are at different refinement levels. So this approach has several disadvantages. To begin with, the adaptive mesh restructuring. To accomplish adaptive mesh restructuring with this kind of approach needs that we replicate the tree structure on each process. This consumes the order number of blocks memory per process and therefore has a very high memory footprint. And to restructure the mesh, there is a ripple propagation algorithm is used, which basically what it does is it starts with the leaf octants or the quadrants at the highest refinement level. They communicate to their neighbors which are more than 2 times their size, which then decompose themselves. Once that is done, then the ripple moves to the leaf octants at one level lower, and so on. So it takes order number of D global reductions overall to accomplish this. D is the depth of the tree. Load balancing is done using space filling curves, which is a centralized scheme, and it takes number of blocks time, order number of blocks time in memory. Another restriction that this kind of design has is that it does not allow coarsening of sibling blocks that are residing on different processes. So we can see that this approach has memory bottlenecks. It has order number of blocks memory required to replicate the tree structure on each process, and the load balancing also takes this much memory, and it has synchronization overheads. There are so many reductions involved to restructure the mesh, and the load balancing also takes a lot of time. So now I'll talk about the new approach, the CHAM++ approach that we have developed. So instead of a process, we promote each individual block as the first class entity. So a char array with custom array indices is used. Each char in that array corresponds to a block in the mesh, and a block is now an endpoint of communication instead of a process. Instead of a process in the typical traditional approach. So how we name the blocks? We name the blocks using bit vector indices. Bit vector basically corresponds to the bit vector from the root of the tree to the block's node, and there is 1 bit per dimension at each level. It's very easy to compute the bit vector indices of the parent, children, and sibling blocks using simple bit manipulation schemes. And since the block acts as a virtual process, the runtime handles the communication between blocks which are addressed using their bit vector indices, and it also has the CHAM++ benefit of overlapping the computation with communication of other blocks on the same physical process. For example, here this process is holding different blocks at different refinement levels, and it can overlap computation while other blocks are waiting for the boundary layers. And the dynamic placement, the ability to place the blocks or the charge dynamically on processes facilitates dynamic load balancing. And since a block is a unit of algorithmic expression, in this case it simplifies the implementation significantly as compared to the traditional approach where we have to implement a process, and the process has to handle a set of blocks which are at different refinement levels. In contrast, in this approach we just have to write code for a single block. So how do we achieve mesh restructuring using this approach? So each block based on the local error estimation, makes a decision whether it wants to refine, course, or stay at the current level, current refinement level. And these decisions are communicated to the neighboring blocks. Course decision is not communicated because it is implied if either of these two is not received. Either of refine or stay message is not received from a block, from a neighboring block. So this shows that how the refine and stay decisions can propagate through the mesh. For example, here let's say only this block decided to refine while other blocks just wanted to stay at their current refinement level. When this sends a message to the neighboring blocks, because the size ratio is going to become more than 2, they also decide to refine. Once they decide to refine, they communicate their refinement decision to their neighboring block, which also now has to refine. So just note that these refinement decisions can propagate along the mesh. So these decisions are updated using a simple finite automata. What it does is it just takes the message received from the neighboring block, its current refinement level, and the block's own refinement level to update its decision. And if a decision is changed, it is just again communicated to the neighboring blocks as was done here. So the question is now, when do we stop? When does this thing stop? So we use the quiescence detection, which indicates that a global consensus on the refinement decisions has been reached. Quiescence just means that the system is silent, doesn't have any tasks to run, and there are no messages in flight or there are no messages to be processed. JAM++ provides an order lock implementation of quiescence detection. And there are other benefits that come with it, that we can move, the blocks can move on to the following successive iterations. They need not wait for the remaining blocks to generate or create their children, because they can always send messages to the blocks that have not yet been created. They will just be buffered and then picked up when they are created. Now for the dynamic load balancing, as we saw in the animation, that since the difficult regions, they are changing, so the load imbalance is created because blocks are created and destroyed dynamically. There is need for dynamic load balancing, and we use the JAM++ provided distributed load balancer, about which we heard yesterday from Harshita. It has logarithmic in processes time space complexity and logarithmic plus a very small time complexity as compared to the centralized scheme. So I'll just give a comparison with the traditional approach. In terms of memory, the traditional approach is taking this much memory, order number of blocks memory per process, as compared to just number of blocks by the number of processes memory in our approach. The mesh restructuring takes ordered the depth number of reductions, global reductions, while we are using just one quiescence detection, and it is highly asynchronous because we need not wait for the blocks to get generated. We can just send messages to them even if they are not yet created. And then we are using distributed load balancer as compared to the centralized space filling curves in the traditional approach. The neighbor lookup is done using hash tables, which are provided by the JAM++ runtime. It just indexes the bit vector indices hashes the bit vector indices to find the process on which a block is lying. On the other hand, in the traditional approach, we have to maintain an order P data structure which contains the range of blocks that each process contains, and then do a binary search over them to find the process on which a block lies. And the implementation, as I earlier mentioned, that is significantly simplified in JAM++ because we just have to write the code for each block, as compared to MPI, in which as compared to the traditional approach in which each process is responsible for a set of blocks at different refinement levels. So we implemented a simple advection benchmark, a 2D implementation of which took just 1300 lines, and 3D took 1600. We are still working on 3D, but this is the current state. So the conclusion is that the new approach, it has a promise for high performance for deeply refined computations than are currently practiced. So I'll give a brief our preliminary results, performance results. So we implemented an advection benchmark, which is just a first order upwind method in 2D space. It basically just simulates the movement of a tracer in a fluid as it moves along with the fluid and also diffuses. So these are some snapshots at different time steps. So this is the remeshing latency. On x-axis is the number of cores. As you can see that it scales well up to 4K cores and then flattens, which is accepted because there are two components that are involved in this. One is the remeshing decisions and the communication time, which scales well, but the termination detection, which is logarithmic in the number of processors, starts dominating at higher scales. And then this is the strong scaling results. It compares the performance with the performance of the without any load balancer and with the distributed load balancer. The no balancing has an efficiency of 55% at 16K cores, and the distributed load balancer has about 78% efficiency. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Question here.
I should ask this before someone else does. You talked about load balancing being centralized within code traditional approaches. I'm not sure Samurai, from what I heard yesterday, Samurai is not centralized, is it? So what traditional, which one were we comparing?
This one was...
Was it Paramesh?
No, not Paramesh.
Jumbo.
This is the guys who are doing this mentor.
You have a list of all of the approaches, right?
Yeah. I don't think it is there in that list, but it's one of the groups that.
What's by comparing the load balancing times of, what's by comparing load balancing times of Samurai versus us?
Searching the literature, not just for load balancing, but also for like a lot of numerical analysis and applied math papers will be focused mainly on the AMR technique and talk about load balancing too. It's not always the focus of the work. There are an awful lot of AMR packages out there, and some people kind of roll their own. So you may want to do a good job with literature there. But I can point you to the stuff on Samurai.
Any other questions? No. Okay.